Hi there. We are live. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Welcome to Supercharge Fridays. This is the second edition of 2021 and the 51st edition in all because we started about, almost a year ago. How are you guys? Come in the comments. I know there's a bit of a delay. We're going to talk about all things resumes with Virginia Franco, who is the first guest of this new year. So I want to say welcome, Virginia, to Supercharge Fridays. Super excited to have you here.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Jump in, tell us what you're up to. It's been an interesting start to the year. Rocky in some places. I'm not going to say it's smooth because we're very far away from vaccines and travel and life as we knew it before COVID, but we'll definitely be getting there. So we have some people jumping in already. Ira, Maruti, Risto, Adina, G, how are you? This is early for you in Texas. Good morning. Good evening to the guys in India, and of course, my dear friend Risto, who's a fellow coach in Finland, who I always learn from. Virginia, he's fantastic. So I'm sure he's got a thing or two to say about
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Um, Wonderful. So we're going to talk about all things resumes with Virginia Franco. And without further ado, we're going to get started. So before we do that, Virginia, for everyone who, doesn't sort of know you yet,
Mhm.
would love for you to tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you started with resumes.
Yeah, so I'm old. I have been writing resumes since the 20th century. Since the day I got out of college, I wrote them for friends, family. I didn't know back then that anyone did this for a living. So instead, I had a brief career in social work, but then I also focused on corporate communications, a lot of freelance writing, which gave me the opportunity to write for newspapers and magazines and websites and annual reports and all of it. And what I learned is that people read the same way regardless of what the documents tend to be. So a lot of my success writing career documents came from incorporating the lessons that I learned at the very beginning. Number one, with my journalism degree, which I forgot to mention, but then also just writing all this other stuff for people.
Yeah.
So I launched in 2008 because I had a lot of kids in diapers and I needed to figure out a way to earn an income without dying in childcare. And so the business was born from there.
Oh, I understand. That sounds like a lot of diapers and a lot of resumes.
Well, yeah, there you go. It was a crisis. The 2008 financial crisis, not unlike now. So,
Yes, totally understand. And they say right, something good comes out of a crisis
yep,
sometimes, and in
absolutely.
your case, innovation and a proper business idea, because this is a proper business. So no, that's fantastic. Uh, I want to say one of the reasons for the audience here, one of the reasons I wanted Virginia is number one is, of course, I love the fact that you're very specialized and you have this sort of laser sharp focus on career documents, resumes, LinkedIn, cover letters, but resumes mostly. That's in your website. Like, you decided I'm going to put the name on the website. So obviously that's special for you.
Mhm.
Second reason is you've been doing it for a while, right? You're not like, oh, I just got laid off. I'm going to start my resume writing service in March 2000. That was not the case. So obviously there's a tried and tested method, which we would love to learn about. And the third is the journalism degree. So there's something to be said about writing, like the skill of writing, right? And that comes in so handy when you have to tell and craft the life story of a total stranger, right? So you're
Yeah.
obviously able to do that. So fantastic. Lauren's in the house. Hi, Lauren. Lovely to see you. We're gonna learn from Virginia together. A quick shout out. A lot of people in here. Ashish, Satish, Ira. Wonderful. Great that you guys are here. Shabazz. Hope I haven't missed anyone. Let's get going. So for our non-US audience, right? I just want to
Mhm.
say quickly, when we say resume, we're talking about our CVs. So I know that some people can get very touchy because they're, oh, it's a totally different document. For today, we're talking, it's the same thing. It's that
Are
document.
interchangeable everywhere but here in the US.
Exactly. And when people in the US hear the word CV, they're like, ew, I don't want to like, they think it's pages of their life history. I'm like, no, no, don't worry. Nobody does that.
Yeah, no, in the US, medical doctors, academia, all that, it's literally your blueprint of everything you've ever done. With a resume, like the European CV, is it's a marketing tool.
Exactly. And that's interesting because the word curriculum vitae is like the story of my life, but
Right.
it's only used by research people. It doesn't mean that non-research and non-academic people don't have a life. It's just that they prefer the French, which is a summary. A resume is a summary, right? That's what
right.
it means. That's what it means in French. I just thought I'll get it out of the way because some people can say,
Yes.
nitpick on it a little bit. So fabulous. So we're gonna get going. I want to start with um lots of people who've been saying this and shouting from the rooftops, and they say, oh, resumes are dead. Nobody reads resumes anymore. What a waste of time. Now, as a resume writer, when you hear this, you're like, really? How is that I continue to get business, and I continue to have clients? So any advice, I just want to say this out loud, any advice that we hear, which is like, nobody does this, or this is wrong, take it with a pinch of salt. I'm not sure these people know what they're talking about because their lens is very limited. What do you say to this, Virginia? Because you've seen this now, like as a proper business owner for
30,
over
25, 30 years, yeah. So I put this in my comments on your social media. The resume is not dead, but it is evolving. The resume that I wrote in 1990 is dead. It continues to change. How I write them continues to change. How people read continues to change. Technology has a lot to do with that. So your circa 20th century resume, even the one you wrote pre-recession, doesn't work any well. Stuff I wrote in 2012 that killed it wouldn't do as well today. So it's really important to keep up with the trends in reading and writing.
Trends with trends with reading and writing, and companies still need a resume, right?
They do. I mean, they still need something short to have a sense of your full career scope. A video is great for a elevator pitch, but then when you want to be able to convey to someone, here are the jobs I had and here's where I did them, the resume is great. LinkedIn can also provide that, but sometimes there's details on LinkedIn that things you don't put on LinkedIn that you put on your resume. So it is a complementary document. It's not the magic bullet, but it is part of your career marketing collateral.
Career marketing?
Collateral, like the stuff you need to be able to get out and find the job.
Oh, I love that. Career marketing. It's your brochure. It's your portfolio of everything that you
need a LinkedIn, you need a elevator pitch, you need interviewing strategies, all part of the toolkit.
Okay, awesome. So I love that. And I also think it's important to reiterate something that you said. And I think we'll try, if we have time, we'll try and get into some detail because a lot of people believe in copy pasting what's on their resume and put it on their LinkedIn. We've talked about it here on Supercharge Fridays many, many times, but it'll be interesting to get your perspective, and hopefully we'll get there because I know there's already a couple of questions that I had yesterday.
Okay. So I can address that really quickly. When I first started writing for LinkedIn, cut and paste worked great. It was easy peasy. The tone of the network has changed. So many more people are on it. The tone is more conversational, where resume is formal. The about section, people spend more time on it than they do that quick summary in your resume. So that's the one-stop shopping place where you need to hook them. LinkedIn is very algorithm driven, and so keywords in the right places are really important. So it's a different document. It's a different beast. I spend as much time on those now as I do on the resumes.
100%. And I want to add one thing to what you said. The purpose is very different, right? LinkedIn is for everything. It's like your landing page, your website, your YouTube channel. It's your, how do you say? Your background check, your business card. It's so many things.
It's where you're found. You want to use to find people and get found, and they're going to vet you using it.
They're going to vet you using it, and yeah, and it's one size fits all, whereas a resume can be slightly
That's right.
tailored.
You can really hone in on your target much more so there than you can on your LinkedIn. That's a really good point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's happening, G? I was talking with someone the other day, excited about when I purchased my first resume and cover letter writing books. Yeah, it's a thing. It's still a
Yeah.
thing. It's not disappeared. So fantastic. So don't treat it the same. Once upon a time, you could get away with it. We've all done it, copy pasting. But now it's a little bit more like, okay, how did you progress? How did you evolve? And show that in your work experience. And don't do the blind copy paste anymore. You can, but it just won't help you to stand out, right?
No,
So
it doesn't. It's not compelling. No one, if something's boring, not one's going to read it. We have too many things to compete with in terms of people's attention. So,
exactly. Fantastic. So now let's get a little bit more focused on resumes. You've seen trends. So we're going to talk about 2021. We're going to get there. But right now, talk to us about, stuff that you still continue to see with your clients, and you hear comments like, but Virginia, this was okay. Like, I want to add this. And you're like,
yeah.
I'm the expert, this doesn't go. Give us a few ideas. Maybe we're doing it right now, and maybe we can learn from mistakes.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is that I need to use the analogy. People read our resumes the same way we read the news when we're in a rush. So think about how you're digesting all the nutty stuff that's happening right now. You look at headlines, and then if the headline grabs you, you read that first paragraph. Without those sections, you don't know what the story's about, and you don't know what you want to come back to when you have more time. So because people read resumes that same way, you've got to put it in there. You'd never read a newspaper article without a headline. Same goes with resumes. It makes it too hard to read. So I see people missing an opportunity by not including those two sections in there. You need a headline that says, I'm an astronaut, I'm a chef, whatever you're targeting. And then you need a paragraph that says, this is how I'm ideally suited for the role. So that's number one. The second big thing that I see people doing is writing for an audience that will be looking at this by printing it out. Right now, resumes are read mostly online during those first rounds. Mobile, big screens, small screens. Printing still happens though, just not until later down the road. And documents designed for print they don't convey well on screens, and they're really, really tough to read on mobile. But luckily, everything that's written for an online read can be read regardless of the medium. So you need to avoid dense text. Big 5-line paragraphs are super tough on the eye. Bullets crammed together are really tough as well. So it's an easy thing to overcome. You keep your paragraphs to 2 to 3 lines, your bullets as well, and then you add just a little bit of white space in between each and every paragraph or bullet, and it makes the eye go, oh, okay, I can digest this. So I mean, that's, when you see those service agreements on when you order something and they're like this much text and you just go, oh, I
No
can't
one
read it.
reads. No one
That's
reads.
why. And so those techniques work very effectively on resumes, but in truth, they work well whether you're writing an email, a PowerPoint deck, or your LinkedIn copy.
Okay, very cool. So the first one you said was, don't forget, just like when you read something, you need
Headline, and that lead paragraph is what you call it in journalism, but it's that summary. The next is writing for print. And then the third one that I see is, and I'm sure you've talked about this on your lives before, is that people tend to list all of their responsibilities. This is what I did day in and day out. That's sort of expected, that's the stuff you do day in and day out, but and so when people read it, they yawn.
Yeah.
How you can make those responsibilities compelling is to explain them within the context of what the achievement was behind it. Why was it so great that you could do this, that, and the other? When people see results, they remember them and they say, that's what I need. So think about the things that you are proud of in your role, and how did you use those responsibilities to make them happen?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about it a lot, and you're very right. And I see accomplished clients, Virginia, senior people, and they still sort of tend to use it like a job description, which it's not.
No, it's not. And when you focus on responsibilities instead of the laundry list of achievements instead of responsibility, you also wind up with 5 or 6 bullets versus 15, which is death by bullets that nobody can read.
Death by bullets, and yeah, like we used to have death by PowerPoint. Now it's like
Yeah.
little bullets.
More than 5 bullets, and we glaze over.
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand. Fantastic. So this was a really good answer. I've already recapped, but in case you're just joining us, don't worry. 3 common mistakes that we talked about in resumes, do not repeat them, please. Ensure that they're easy to read. There's headlines, so that the person is like, "Ooh, what is this?" And then they'll go and read into the details. If you already get into the details in the trees, the forest is not clear, it's gonna be ignored. The second thing is, you don't want it to be too dense. So something that you think looks great on paper may look a bit too cramped online, and people are first looking online before you're shortlisted to the next round. So the white space that you're talking about, the eyes, I think it's like, the eyes are saying, thank you,
Yeah.
you're letting me breathe.
That's right.
That's a great point. And the third is, of course, the yawning, boring details. Not even one line. I mean, yes, you can have like, this was my title, this was what I was responsible for, and then after that, it's not descriptive, it's achievement. Every single line is achievement. Because if you're not doing that, you're sound like a parrot. You sound like a job description, which you're not.
Unfortunately, all these things are things that we're doing to keep someone's interest, or at least attract their interest. And people have so many competing documents and things to look at that if you don't grab them, they're going to move on.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. So this is extremely useful. I'm just going to shout in. Kevin, good morning. What's happening? Good to see you here. I saw that there was a question in here, and I'm going to see. People say you need to make it into one page. Okay, we're talking about length because this is a age-old concern.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, you're a new grad, but Virginia, maybe talk to us about this because I have some thoughts as well.
Yeah. So there are general guidelines, but no hard, fast rules. I did see a study several years ago where they interviewed recruiters, and the majority of recruiters said they preferred a one-page resume. But then when they actually took a deeper look and said, well, how many of the people you hired, what percentage of them had one-page resume? And the answer was not very many. So I thought that was really telling. What I have found is that people with less than 5 years, when you really focus on the achievements, you really can get it to about one page.
Yes.
After that, it is really hard, and 2 pages is acceptable. I have gone into 3 pages, not often, but there's times when there are certain addendums that I need to include. But my issue with 3-page resumes is that I'm always worried about that ADD reader. And if they see something that's 3 pages, they go, oh, too hard. So sometimes I can't do it, but I try for 2 pages. But it all depends on the story.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when you focus on the achievements, you can whittle it down.
Even if you have, Virginia, even if you have 20, 30 years experience?
I mean, yeah, we could talk about some techniques, but usually I'll focus primarily on 2005 to present, synopsize the earlier experience that's really valuable in a smaller section, and where it can run into where I have problems with the length is when people are thought leaders and involved, a lot of publications and conferences or articles, and I want to reference that, and if their volunteer work is relevant to what they want to do next. When they have a lot of that extra stuff, that's where I run into space issues, but generally I can get the experience part and brief education in 2 pages, no problem.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Some creative formatting too, and I can share a video with you on how to make that happen and readable.
No, definitely. I think when I see clients with 30 years experience, right, then I feel I have some, like somebody's looking for a CEO role, and even if you bring it down like really tight, it has sometimes gone 3 pages, maybe even more, but rare. It's rare, and those are people they're going to read it because it's not an applicant tracking system, if you know what I mean. It's being read. But that is the exception, Ira. So for you, if you have less than 5 years, you have.
And the other thing is that when someone has really valuable a valuable story that happened back in the 90s, early 2000s, if you want to make sure it doesn't get buried on page 2, you can reference it in your summary section at the top so that someone is clued in to want to take a look.
Yeah, I love that. I do the same when there's an achievement which is unforgettable. Hook, because you said headline, right? So hook them right at the beginning and don't
put it in the summary, yeah, top of page 1 when it's super relevant.
Exactly, because otherwise we're gonna have somebody put this. It was very funny on LinkedIn. We're gonna have the where's. Are you guys familiar with Where's Wally? So you're like looking at the We don't want them to do that with your resume. We want it to be upfront and super duper visible.
Yeah.
So cool, fabulous. Mohib is asking, now in the post-pandemic period, I hope it is post-pandemic, Mohib, I don't know, maybe you're being a bit optimistic here. What are the 3 most important skills which the recruiter wants to see on our resume? It's a very general question. Virginia, you want to take it?
So it depends. I hate to say that. What someone wants in a software engineer is different than what they want in a CFO or a marketing person. That being said, what I am seeing now is they want, and we could talk about this with the COVID stuff, but they're looking for showing how you can support a company in good times and in bad. They want people that are collaborative, and that's probably because they're making lots of changes to staffing, right? And that they're adaptable and flexible. So those are the 3 general things, but the specific hard skills are super dependent on the role.
Yeah.
So that answers the question.
Exactly. And Mohib, if you want to have a follow-up question with us, no problem. Why don't you tell us what do you do? What are you kind of looking for, so that we can help you with that. But do obviously focus on, make it targeted, make it customized, and not like.
This is a hack from Emily Lawson, shout out, but go to your homepage on your LinkedIn, click on the More button, and click on Resume, and type in your job title that you're targeting. And if you have premium, it'll give you a list of a bunch of keywords. JobScan does the same thing. You can get a free JobScan tool, and that'll help you find the skills that you need.
Absolutely. JobScan is a fantastic site. I also tell my clients to do that who are a little more junior, who need to go through the JobScan, who need to go through the ATS. So here it is. I've just put it in the comments so you can compare with the words. It's not about the format, it's the words you use in your resume versus the words that are in a job description to see is there a good match or not. Take advantage of JobScan for sure. Cool, fabulous. So Ira, you're still in college. You've got a way to go. Don't worry. Anything less than anything more than 1 page, don't listen to your friends. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Satish is somebody who's got a lot more experience, and he's in fact a military vet. Is 1 page for every 10 years a good empirical formula?
I don't think so. I think after 5 years, aim for 2, knowing that sometimes it'll get to 3. Because if someone has 50 years of experience, I don't see a 5-page resume.
Yeah. I would say, Satish, because I think you're close to 25, 30, you should be able to manage within a couple of pages. If you need to go to the 3rd because you can't help it, that's okay. Go to the 3rd. Don't hold your creativity short. Lots of questions in here, and I want to go with because we also have our own questions. Adina,
the link I have to how to get a document shorter, and I don't have time to do now, but I'll get it to you because it just walks you through how to use Word to make it readable and get it shorter.
Okay, sorry, I missed you. You said you have a technique to help to get a document shorter?
Yeah, I filmed it on my YouTube. It's on YouTube, but it's how to get a document to fit in the, if you're like 2 1/4, how to get it to 2 pages using just some formatting that's still really readable.
Okay, very cool. So we're not going to give you more homework. We love that you're here. Everybody who's listening, who's interested, go to virginiafranco.resumes.com. I'm sure your YouTube channel is in there.
Yeah, it's Resume Storyteller on YouTube.
Okay, perfect. So, through the website, there's a link to the YouTube channel, Resume Storyteller.
Resume Storyteller, yeah.
Storyteller, and
show up on YouTube.
You'll definitely find the video that Virginia is talking about. So that's very cool. I'm going to check that video out, Virginia, because I don't know this one either. So awesome. 1 second. There was another question I thought I missed out. How important is it to include volunteer work and short-term intern jobs?
That's a really good question. Again, it depends. So if you're volunteering, if there's a couple times when I feel like volunteering is really important. One is when it cements, you're using your expertise in your role and you're lending it to that volunteer position. So then it shows that you're viewed as an expert and able to apply that. The second time when I think it's really important is when you're trying to cement yourself as someone who is really well entrenched in your local area. So if you're volunteering with a lot of local organizations, and let's say you're in sales and you want to show, I know this market, that's another good way. But or if you're trying to, I work with all the people all the time that are trying to make a pivot to a nonprofit or a cause. And so listing that experience in a volunteer capacity helps to show it. So you always have to go back to what your job target is and think about how whatever you put in there will support that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And Adina, I want to add one more thing to what Virginia said. There was a research done about 6 years ago on hiring managers, and 42% of hiring managers value volunteer work at the same level as paid work.
Mm-hmm.
So don't hesitate, particularly if you think it's going to be helping you. Not many people volunteer. It also shows the size of your heart. Personally, I would definitely take advantage of it and obviously ensure that it adds something to the role that you're looking for.
Yeah, and it's a really prominent section on LinkedIn for a reason. Fill it in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, and make it nice, and don't hesitate there. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't even have to be related, because remember we said LinkedIn is not targeted. It's one size fits all. So definitely take advantage. Shilabdra says, anything on resumes going through the ATS? One or two particular points you want to talk about, because that's more about the format.
So first off, I am not a fan of applying online as your first point of entry. It is I'm sure you talked about this. You have to apply to 100 jobs to get 3 responses. A great resume that's written so well might get 9, which is still pretty cruddy when you apply to 100 jobs. So try to have an internal champion first. Ideally find out about the roles before they are put on there. But when you do submit online, if you can submit PDF, please do, because PDF reads it differently than ATS reads PDF differently than it does Microsoft Word. It has to do with how imaging and layering, which is way over my head. But the problem is that the more advanced systems can easily read PDF, but the more older ones cannot. So if you're in a position where you have to upload your resume to Word, using Word, you need to make sure that your contact information is not in your header, because it can't read anything in that. It cannot read anything in a text box, which means a lot of those fabulous resume templates are obsolete. Yeah. So I always write a Microsoft Word, because I don't know how advanced the ATS systems are. The big companies have them. Some of the older, smaller ones don't, because they're expensive. The technology is evolving. So I try to follow the rules as if they're redoing Word, but I always save it to PDF.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Okay, Mohib, you're getting very specific in terms of what you do. Hang around, because I'm going to ask this question that I think will help lots of us who are, going through job search in the middle of COVID. So, Virginia, what do you think about, Winston Churchill? There's always something good in a crisis, right? How can we actually say, okay, these are some skills that I learned during COVID, and how can we explain it very clearly outside of the workplace? These are some accomplishments I've had.
So I'll give you my answer, but if I haven't answered it right, we can go deeper. How I am addressing COVID with my clients is I always think back to what the reader wants to see. And a boss in a company, as I said earlier, they want to know that you can support a company in good times and in bad. And right now it's bad. So I will ask them, how did you, if you're a manager, how did you protect your people? How did you work to keep them safe? How did you, what steps did you take to help ensure their productivity during this crazy time? And then how did you help make sure that your customers were as minimally impacted as possible? A lot of companies took revenue hits, but if you can speak to the customer experience, or maybe the revenues were projected to lose 50% and you only lost 20 because of the steps you made, that is very impactful. The other thing, and if you're not a manager, you can still talk about how you quickly adjusted to this new environment. You can speak to the, in your technology proficiency section, you can list some of the online tools that you learned, like if you learned Zoom or Slack or whatever it was. The other thing that is important to note is if you lost your job because of COVID, you absolutely need to call that out. Right now, you think people would assume, but I guarantee you next year, as soon as people are starting to get the vaccine, it's not going to be top of mind. In interviews and in the resume, I think it's important also to note that you should say that you were part of an organizational layoff or a team or division layoff, so that there is no misperception that this was performance related.
Mm-hmm. That's really good.
It wasn't me, it was them. I was part of the team. They had to make the decision to lay off.
Yeah, and it's very sad that we have to say that sometimes, but sometimes the people on the other side may not have the empathy that you've lost your job. So their first reaction is,
2008, it was like that. Everyone assumed, oh, it was 2000, but people forget.
Exactly. No, that's excellent that you said that. And Virginia, so someone who's not working today, right? And they're trying their best to make their profile look attractive, to someone. So you said, for example, show that you've learned something. You learned Zoom, you learned Slack, you learned tech. Maybe you've taken courses or whatever. Any other aspect other than the learning part, where because your days are not full, right? As a job seeker.
So when people have, and a lot of people lost their jobs or were looking for jobs in January, and then things hit the fan. So now what would have been a shorter job search is dragged on. I do a deep dive, and I'm always shocked at how many people are lending their advice to people for free. Volunteering info, taking certifications. Think about how you're filling up your time, paid or not paid, and weave it in there. Like I said, I talked to someone last week in finance, and they're like, well, I've been, looking for jobs in gardening, but it turned out I was like, did you share your advice? And like, yeah, some people are doing tax prep. So I was sharing that. I'm like, let's list that. If you're taking care of a sick parent and you are navigating the hospital system and you're targeting a project manager role, you're using your project management skills. So think about what you did and how your skills were used in it.
Okay, I'm applauding here. Applauding here. This is the applause emoji. I'm so happy that you said that. We are not talking about what you're supposed to say in interviews. I'm so glad we agree. We're talking about stuff that you write in your resume. You've got to explain it. Don't hide the gaps.
Elephant in the room, call it out.
Call it out, because it looks like you've got something to hide. And I'm personally not a fan of 2018 to 2019, and then suddenly 2020. Oh gosh! By the way, I still can't get over it. We're in 2021.
I know, right? It's been like 2 years.
Exactly. So it's like suddenly 2020. So like, what were you doing in that period? Don't let that question come up, because it might be a reason that, oh, let me put this resume on the side because I have a doubt. When you put something on the side, chances of going back to it, come on, let's be honest here.
No. And look, people fill in the blanks. If you don't fill them in for them, control the narrative. Don't let someone else do it for you.
Exactly. Lee's applauding with me as well. So cool. Hey, Shweta's here. How are you?
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me. Virginia has a fabulous podcast as well. It's called Resume Storyteller. So you should definitely check it out. She's interviewing lovely people in there. That was a backhand.
Yeah, we'll be up soon.
I'll be up soon. That's how are a backhanded compliment. So there was another question in there which I missed out. Somebody wrote something about bullet points. It was something like, should we have 1 or 2 bullet points? Do you have a limit on that, Virginia?
No. So I talked about death by bullets. For me, after 5 bullets, if I have to have more, I break them down into sort of subcategories, because I don't remember where I read this, but 5 is sort of the brain's limit before it glazes over, and breaking it down into smaller chunks makes it more digestible. So do a 5 bullet one, have a little another category, and then list 2 or 3 other ones.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. And my friend Risto here in Finland has a question, which is an interesting question. Virginia, I'm really old. Okay, Risto, stop it. Having experience
Hello. Yeah.
nearly 5 decades of experience. How about putting, if I ever need to, 3 last positions on my CV? For younger people, I've recommended 10 years or 3 last positions. What do you think about that?
So what I know is that people, I describe it as the rabbit hole phenomenon. People after the last 50, if they see stuff that's much older than 15, sometimes 17 years, they go into a rabbit hole where they say, "You gosh, I wonder how old the person is. I wonder how if they have kids. I wonder when they went to school." When you have 6, 8 seconds to make an impression, I don't want that rabbit hole. So I focus less on the number of jobs and more on the years because I want to avoid the rabbit hole phenomenon. So I don't know that I have a firm timeline. Some, especially nowadays with people jumping from people leave roles after a couple of years, and so you very well might have more than 3 roles in the last 15 years.
Yeah, yeah. Risto, I don't know if there's a cultural element in here as well, because in fact, that was my next question, but I just want to address this a little briefly. So, Risto, I think it depends. I know that in some places, ageism is a big deal where they are out with it, like they say it. In other places, it's not. I personally think that if you've got stuff to share, you should share it, but it's more about quality versus quantity. So
Mhm.
if you've done 50 years, I would talk about it and I'd be really, really proud of it. But obviously, if it's something that I did in the 70s, I'll keep that not even in a bullet frame. I would do it in like a paragraph, and I would say between 1970 and 1985, I worked, and like a paragraph. I wouldn't do short
I
paragraph. I
know.
wouldn't do bullet.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Sorry, but nobody cares because it was so long ago. People are more, there's a recency bias in place. At least that's
And I only include earlier jobs if they're relevant. Sometimes they're not. You have the benefit of being able to pick and choose when you're doing that earlier stuff. So
makes perfect sense. We have lots of questions. I'm going to get to you guys, I promise you, but we do want to continue because I want to make sure we make the most of Virginia's time with us. And Virginia, I know you work with clients around the world. Do you
mhm.
sometimes do a little, because we, like, for example, in Europe, but do you sometimes do a tweak here and there, and you're like, you see that clients in the Middle East or Africa or Asia
Yeah.
are happier with certain things?
So I am not an expert in the Middle Eastern job market, Asia Pacific, by any stretch. So what I always, if you are targeting work with a multinational company and you live outside the US, then I am your person. And so the things that I make sure to take into account for that international audience, it seems simple, but I will pick the right spell check depending on where the person is likely going to be: Canadian, American, English, British, Australian, etc. And that's a simple
Commonwealth.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I try to stay away from slang or US colloquialisms. Like I wouldn't use hashtag WFH in a resume somewhere else. I don't know if that's a standard term. I try to keep the language very, very plain speak so that it can be read wherever. But I don't know the ins and outs of what you need for a resume in Finland or in Australia or
No,
Taiwan or anything like
no,
that.
that's fine. That wasn't
Yeah,
the intention, because if you knew all that, I mean, how unless you're a robot, you wouldn't know like
I
countries.
know, and I don't. So, but
No, but it's very interesting what you said, because I remember when I graduated. It's interesting. It was the year 2000. So Risto, you're not the only one who's old, okay? You're, like, old and proud. And I remember making my resume for the very first time. I have a brother who lives in the US, and he helped me make my first resume. He doesn't remember because now I'm helping him with his resume. He's like,
right.
you? And he said this is an American style of resumes. And I'm like, what does that mean? All I remember, it was very clean, brief summary, name, and immediately the work experience, and in the end, education. So it was one page, very clean, no riffraff, no
Mhm.
extra crap. So that, I think, is universal. I don't think the US should, we should call that American, but I feel like that basic document, basic, when I say basic, meaning it's got all your bells and whistles in terms of achievements, that's a great place to start, like a clean format.
Yeah, and West or multinational companies that works very well with those as well. And so I work all the time with country managers and people that are abroad, and I use that style.
Exactly. And I want to add something because somebody had asked about ATS. Shilabdra, I think, had asked. And when I said clean, it's the opposite of that is, I don't know about you, Virginia, but I personally can't stand it when you see a resume and people have rated their skills on a scale of 1 to 5. And it's like
All that.
IT language, 5. French, 3 out of 5. I don't know. I feel like, who are you?
And those are templates that people use as well. And to me, that's graphics for graphics' sake. And it takes up a lot of space, and I don't want to use my graphic space for that because I can tell it much more succinctly without that pretty graphic. It might go well in an advertising one, though, so you have to think about your market.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. All right, fabulous. I've been keeping some people waiting because there's been some questions. So I'm gonna go and find them because we've got so many comments. You guys are so interactive. I absolutely love it. G, I know you're waiting. I'm getting there. I can't find no question. There was something about HR manager. Let's see. If you see it, Virginia, let me know. Okay, Kambam had a question. For an HR manager, do certifications give more impact on resume or experience in the field? They do, but I don't know. For you, is that a differentiator?
So if you are a SPHR and then yeah, you want to include it. You have to go to the job postings. Look at 5 job postings. So don't just look at one. If 3 of the 5 say that your certification is preferred, then put it on there. If not, I don't see a downside of listing a certification that's related to your target.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the experience matters more. If you don't have the experience and you got the certification, then you speak in your resume about the stuff you learned in the certification or what you learned when you did your degree, to sort of you use that to close the gap.
Okay, awesome. Somebody's like, oh, very knowledgeable and experienced. I'm like, yes, that is Virginia for sure. Here we are. So regarding not applying online first, I've heard lately that it's important to actually apply and then go back and engage people who can possibly help support it going through. Thoughts?
So I'm a fan of the reverse, and here's why. It's human nature when you're a boss and you have a job that you need filled, you have to go to HR, you have to get the posting done, they work on getting it posted. But while that's going on, you're saying, who do I know that would be good? Or, hey guys, who do you know? And so those conversations are happening while the posting is being prepared. And by the time it has come out, there's often a really strong pipeline of pre-qualified candidates. Additionally, while they're preparing the posting, maybe the internal recruiter is out there and they're looking for people on LinkedIn. So those preliminary conversations, when you get the call that says, hey, the posting's coming out, go post, you fast track right to the front. I've said it's like the Disneyland Fast Pass or whatever you call it. It bumps you to the front of the line. And my husband has done that with all of his jobs. It's amazing. And he works for a big company where you have to apply online. But if you didn't have that conversation, then absolutely apply and then see who you know that can help to get you a leg up. Internal champions are always more powerful. HR people say it all the time. If they come in from an internal referral, even if they don't know them as well, you're going to get a leg up over a total stranger.
Absolutely. Having said that, and I think it's very interesting when you have two, people who are, deep in their field. So you and I completely agree with you. And I don't want to say but, I want to say and we do have clients who are really successful who applied first. So it comes down to firing multiple guns at the same time. And, they didn't do the referral thing, etc. But you can say they got lucky, but they weren't waiting by the phone. That's it. They weren't waiting by the phone, waiting for something to happen. So you do exactly what Virginia said. And at the same time, you look at it doesn't cost you to apply. It takes a couple of seconds, do it, but also do the stuff that's happening behind the scenes and not.
Yeah, no, I agree. And because there are people that hit the jackpot with that stuff. I love it when that happens. You have to be mindful of when the posting happens. You need to apply right away. Keep track of when companies tend to do their postings. A posting that's 3 weeks old, you probably don't. I don't think you have as great of a shot as you do if you hit it in that first 24, 48 hours. Is that your experience from HR as
Yeah.
well?
Yes, yes. And I want to say, because there's a very, I love this expression. It's come from marketing in the United States. They say the riches are in the niches. So in the Commonwealth, we say niche. So the more specialized the role is, chances are they're not going to get that many applications either. So even if you apply and you're part of 30, it still helps to have an attractive resume and stand out. And then you can do the backdoor,
Yeah.
whispering and backdoor entry as well. So if it's a role which is more broad marketing, SEO, there's going to be a lot more competition. Then you gotta like step up your game if you wanna be found.
That's a very, very good point.
Okay, awesome. So fabulous. So Risto says specialization supported by wide experience. Yeah, Risto, you've got it. Like you're really good at this. So you know exactly what you're doing. And Lee says there are hiring managers, HR hiring managers who have huge regard for certification. So I think Kambam, that was your point. Just add. You can't. It doesn't hurt you. So just like add them for sure.
Well, IT as well.
Yes,
they love certifications. So
they love certifications. It's their insurance that they can show you to the hiring manager because the hiring manager needs that. What happens when you think you don't have accomplishments to share? Especially with the imposter syndrome in our head.
Yeah, then you'd be wrong. Everyone has accomplishments, and this is how I go about uncovering them. Ask yourself just a simple question. As I walk out the door or when I left that job and back, what was I proudest of? The second question is how would someone know that I left my mark? And the third question is, what would they say about me? And then you need your answers to be the why to that. And those are your results and your accomplishments.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like peeling the onion without the tears.
Yeah.
I call it.
It's hard to do it. It's hard to write your own stuff. Have that discussion. If you don't work with a professional, talk with someone that knows your job and knows you, and have that two-way dialogue, because you can lose the forest through the tree when you're trying to tell your own blood, sweat, and tears.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great point. And to what you said, what is it that happened because you were there and because you did that? So that's the thing to think about. And I love that you said this right now, because Risto, I don't know if you remember, if you're still here, he said something very cool once in one of the live streams. He said you can never tickle yourself. If you tickle,
that's right.
It's not funny. The brain knows. So you cannot always write your own resume in a way that comes across as very impressive. It doesn't come naturally. So it really helps to work with a coach or take a course or something and get those ideas out. Because otherwise you're humble. You're humble, you're modest. And I'm not even talking humble brag, just humble. And if you don't toot your own horn here, no one's going to do it for you. So fabulous. Okay, I have other questions.
Analogy.
Yeah, I love that tickle analogy. I'm going to come back. We have a lot more questions. Oof, I'm like actually sweating. It's winter, and I'm like, okay, I'm coming. My palms are sweaty. Let's talk about your favorite tips, Virginia. Help us to stand out. And you're like, not the golden ticket, but you're like, oh yeah, do these 3 things and it's going to make a difference.
Okay, so this is a simple one. Have you open your resume on your phone. If you cannot, and make sure you use the PDF. Always email PDF, look it on your phone PDF, because otherwise Apple Reader or Google Reader will open it up and the formatting gets wonky. But look at your screen. If you cannot scroll in 10 seconds and get the salient points, you need to go back to the drawing board. That's number 1. Number 2, I am not a big fan of straight black and white resumes. I know that doesn't please everyone, but in talking with the majority of my network, a bit of color and some minor design elements can make an impact. So don't be afraid to do that. You can use a depends on the industry, but traditional conservative industries, a little bit of Navy in your headline, in your name, in the experience, like the headline, those little headlines. I am a fan of, although I did just talk with someone who's a legal recruiter and they said they're in the 18th century, no color. So you have to be mindful of your audience. The third one I would say is that question. We talked about how people read these, they look at the headline and they look at the summary section, and then they look at where and when you work. And because they're pressed for time, if they're looking, you can only count on them probably looking at that very first one, because they don't have much more time than that on that first read. So make it impactful. That's why I don't have, a lot of people sort of have a big fat overview. I manage 8 people in this budget and blah, blah, blah. I might, if I could get that to one line, great, but otherwise I weave that into the that achievement that I'm really proud of. So I raised revenues 1,000,000% while managing 5 people in a $30 million budget. I'll try to do it that way. When it's interesting, when people happen to have a little bit of extra time with online reading, you'd think that we go down after the first bullet, you go down to the second bullet, but we don't. We jump and we tend to look at the bottom bullet. So when I'm thinking about the ordering of bullets, I stick the coolest one at the top, and then something secondarily impactful at the bottom, recognizing the middle might not get looked at.
No, exactly. I completely agree with you. So a quick recap. Number one, this is very cool. I never thought about this. So try and see if you can scroll on your resume within 10 seconds on your phone. If you can tolerate it and you're like, ugh, it's so horrible to read. Imagine what it's like for the recruiter.
That's enough to do, to look at it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. The second reminds me, it's so funny you said that, because I love Navy as well for my clients. And only one client once said, I need red. And I'm like, okay, that's attractive as well. So go for it. I find like for very conservative companies, Navy is still close to black, but yet it's not boring. And if you want to go extreme, I'm remembering the movie. Do you remember Virginia, Legally Blonde? And she's got this pink resume and they're like, it's scented. It's funny when you said lawyer in the 18th century, because she was trying to be a lawyer, and it's like, is that scented pink? She's like, it adds a little something extra, don't you think?
You're never going to please everyone. And so what my rule of thumb is, run your documents by 5 people. Everyone has an opinion for sure. But if 3 of 5 people say the same thing, then you have a thread that you need to address. Otherwise, don't twist yourself into a pretzel about it.
No, that's a great point. And the third is, I completely agree with you. Our real estate is on top. So make it attractive, make it count. People read the top, people read, in my experience at least, they read the bottom, which is, interesting, juicy things, what did you do outside of work, something interesting, and your education. People like that because it's so boring if you see 100 resumes a day. But the middle, eyes glaze over.
That's a third, fourth round read.
So sad because you spend so much time on the middle. Doesn't matter. Just keep it in there, but remember that you want to focus on the top and the bottom as well.
Yeah, the middle is later down the road, but not for that first round.
Oh, okay, fabulous. So these are definitely great tips, and I'm going to jump into your questions in there. Let's see where I left you guys. Yes. So Mansi has a question. I always wonder, is it a good idea to have okay. So this is, I know, Virginia, what you're going to say, because in the United States.
Yeah, it depends on the country.
It depends on the country. In Scandinavia, I know for a fact, I don't know, Risto, if you agree, but at least I've been told it's a complete no-no. But in other countries, I think it adds a little extra. And I think
it's sort of silly because we have our picture on LinkedIn, and not having your picture on LinkedIn is a no-no. But the rationale I have been told is that companies don't want to they don't want any hint of age or race or gender discrimination. So removing that helps. So yeah, no birth dates, no social security, no personal information like how many kids you have and your wife or your husband, and no picture on U.S. resumes for multinational companies.
Exactly. The picture part I know, and the US is very strict about it.
It might change, who knows? But
yeah, exactly. Other things that Virginia said that you didn't ask, Mansi, but how many kids? Somebody once mentioned the name of a dog. it's not related necessarily to the job, then keep it out. It's extremely
Unless you're applying for a pit shelter, then it's probably important. So depends
yes.
on your target. Yes.
Yes, then keep it targeted. Prashanti, hi. How long should a resume be for someone with? Okay, Prashanti, we addressed it. If you don't mind, go back and watch the replay. I highly suggest everyone here watch the replay because we covered this in a lot of detail and other stuff. And I definitely think it's worth your time. What do you think of video resumes?
Any thoughts?
Well,
I mean,
you,
yeah, what
you
do you think? I mean, I'm a fan of all sorts of marketing collateral. They are certainly more well received in certain industries than others. More traditional industries, I don't see an accountant making a huge hit, but you never know. So have something in print, have something in video, have the stuff on LinkedIn. Use it all. There's no one magic bullet. Having a bunch of things is better than just one.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to say, Nibia, I think do what feels right to you and help you stand out. If doing a video feels, the thought of doing video makes your, palms clammy and
Yeah, then it's not
okay,
you.
do it, lean into your strengths. They say discomfort, you learn from your fear and yeah, okay. When it's about putting your best foot forward, put your best foot forward. If it means it's in writing, do it in writing. Do what feels comfortable and do what feels right to you.
Yeah, but if you stammer on camera and you are super uncomfortable, it's going to show. So
It's better to not do that, in fact. So hey, Lauren, completely agree with you on the referral bit.
a lot of zeros.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. You're freelancing, add that in the resume, Ira. Could you explain what do you mean? How do I add it? Just talk about what you do.
Yeah, if your freelancing is all related to one topic. So I had many years where I wrote for lots of different publications. So I didn't want to have 72 jobs on my resume. Instead, I listed freelancing and I talked about the reasons why people hired me. And then I gave 3 examples of things I wrote and the problem I was solving and writing them. And then I listed the publications for me. So see what you can group. But yeah, a lot of people they have to piece together a bunch of side gigs, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine. Just weave the story together. It's not that complicated.
Yeah.
Ilmi says, hi Ilmi, she's in Indonesia, so it's evening for her. What do you think about adding a line or two on your resume, mentioning the recommendation that we received on LinkedIn, as these are great references available?
So to me, you don't need to waste a line saying references available upon request, but I always look at someone's recommendations on LinkedIn, and if there's something powerful in there that conveys a point much more strongly than I could, I will include it above the experience and say LinkedIn recommendations, and I'll list a couple of 3. If someone just says you're a hard worker with great attention to detail, that doesn't really say much, but if there's something that really resonates, I'll include it on the resume.
No, definitely. And Ilmi, it's anyway a good idea in your contact information on your resume to have your LinkedIn URL. If you don't have a LinkedIn URL, there's a very simple way to do it. Go to your settings, go to me, and make sure that linkedin.com / it says your first name, last name. It says something. Yeah. Or like Kevin D. Turner, it says / president. but
yeah, shorten it and
shorten it, and if the recruiter is worth their weight in salt, they will see your recommendations. You don't have to even mention it, to be honest, because they know that recommendations are on LinkedIn are kind of a big deal. It's not like people will just say whatever, because it can be traced back to them, right? So
sometimes there's references that people didn't put on LinkedIn. So if there's something again powerful, I won't write the whole thing, but I'll take snippets of it and I'll list the role that person was in. If it was a big wig at a company, I'm going to list that because that resonates with the reader.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lee says headline is greater than the summary section. It's greater than where you're right. Yeah, you got it. That's the way our eyes are. And 2 to 3 bullets. Yeah, because I think it comes down to the appetite for words and content.
I mean, I use more than 3 bullets, but I keep my bullets to 3 lines max. So
3 lines per bullet, you mean?
Yeah, 2 to 3 lines per bullet. But I mean, I can fit in 5 bullets.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends, but don't freak out that you need X amount of bullets. Think about what you were proud of and let that guide what you write.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's been told ATS compliant doesn't allow for color graphics. Well,
It can't read color. It can't read color. It can't read shading. It just will translate it into black and white. Graphics, it can't read anything in a text box. So if you used a pie chart or a what do you call it? Like those stock market, I forgot what you call those graphics. A table, it can't read them very well. So I will use them sometimes if I think it will help the person, the human, not the bot, to tell something really quickly. So if I had 5 years of revenue growth and I can show that on a quick chart, I will, but I will also weave the language into the resume in the text. I also have a YouTube video about that because the bots can't read it. So you have to make sure you're balancing the bots and the humans.
Okay, so definitely check out Virginia's YouTube channel. It's going to be mentioned on her website. Take advantage of the free information that we have, like wonderful people like her who share very generously. So you'll definitely get what you're looking for in there. Yeah, I mean, G, having said that, if it doesn't make a difference about the color, then might as well use it. It's indifferent to it because it's going to treat it like black and white. So it doesn't really hurt you.
You know what ATS can read is to take your Word document, do a save as, and click on the plain text, the what do you call it, the TXT option,
Yeah.
and that's what ATS sees.
Yeah, exactly. And Rajiv, that's exactly what we're talking about, AI. So at the end of the day, it's not that the ATS or the applicant tracking system, which is the AI, it's not that it's making decisions. And I know you talk about this a lot. It's not deciding who gets to stay or not. It's more about eliminating the very basics in terms of keywords, correct?
Yeah, it's looking for 10
Match.
years of experience, these sorts of skills, and it boils your resume into plain text, and then it parses your document and it scores the all of that information.
Yeah, exactly. And we had a question yesterday. I don't know if she's watching. Her question was, I'm doing a job today to pay my bills, but I'm an interior designer, and how do I do that? We talked about, so I'll tell her to watch the replay, but we talked about so many things. We talked about volunteering, and Kevin says those side gigs are actually a great way to highlight skills that your regular job doesn't provide you.
But yeah, that was a really good question. I remember that her most recent job wasn't aligned with her job target. And so what I probably would have done with someone like her is I would have had branding that positioned her for the role she was targeting, the headline that says that, the skills that are relevant to that job target. But then in the experience, I might do I don't know how you feel about this, but like a function, if she had like 2 roles or something that were not relevant, I might break it into a hybrid functional chronological where I'll list interior design jobs and list those, and then say, I don't know, lump the more recent work into something else, because when you just want to show that you've been working. But if it was just one quick job, sometimes there's a different approach I'll take with that.
Yeah, exactly. Because everyone's different. I think one thing I would add is I would keep it obviously the resume is targeted to the position, but I'm a huge non-fan when it comes to cover letters. I'm not. I've ranted on it a lot because I see most 85% of recruiters don't read them. However, if you're applying to a very niche role and the company is very small and interior design, chances are it might even be a mom and pop shop. There, a cover letter would help you because you can say, what is it I'm doing today? But this is what I'm good at, right? And I think this is exactly what you guys are looking for.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I don't know the percentages, but a huge amount of cover letters do get tossed. But when they're read, they can be a deal breaker. And when there is an elephant in the room that you need to address, that's the place to do it. Career pivots, things in your job experience that don't line up.
Yeah,
because people do read them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point. You're still there, right? Because you're like breaking up a little bit, but I hear you.
No, I can.
Okay, awesome. So George is asking about emojis on the resume. What do you think about that?
They can't be read by ATS. It depends on your audience. If you were applying to a job in Wall Street, I would say no. If you're applying to a marketing role, maybe be more well received. That goes for the emoticons you use in your LinkedIn as well. But sometimes I've seen where someone will applying to, you said nature emoticon. Let's say you're applying to a earth conservation, climate conservation program, and you have a little image in the top corner that speaks to that, then it's part of your branding. Include it on there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's a great point. Lee looked at your calendar, on your website, and like you're busy till a bit, Fab. Is it because you're so much business right now because people are changing jobs like crazy?
Um, yeah, a lot of people are worried. Because I'm so booked out, I am referring people that have lost their jobs to other people right now. But a lot of people are just either fed up and want to make a change. They're using this time where they said, I've had COVID, Tommy, I want to do what I love. And so I'm getting a lot of those, and I'm getting a lot of people that say, I think I'm fine, but just in case, you never know, I need to be prepared.
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah,
that's
I'm
good.
booked out quite a bit right now.
Yeah. Okay, fabulous. Guys, this has
And I
been
know some great people that are not, so I'm happy to share referrals.
okay. No, that's wonderful. It's wonderful that you're busy, and it's wonderful because it also shows that people are thinking about themselves and investing
Yeah,
in their
yeah,
career by having a coach, because not
yeah.
everybody is in a position to do that, or even
Right.
willing mentally to
Mhm.
do that. So that's
And
definitely
if you need to get in with someone really quickly, and time is of the essence, there are lots of great business owners that have a team of writers, and they are better equipped to handle
and
things in a way that I'm a one-person shop. So
yeah, no, I absolutely understand. Fabulous. We covered so much it's been 6 minutes past the hour, and Virginia's been so generous with her time considering how booked out she is. So I'm super grateful. And I want to do a very quick recap of our conversation. Resumes are not dead. Don't listen to the naysayers. Focus on what you need to do to get ahead. And we talked about mistakes that, so many mistakes that people make. Definitely watch, the conversations again. We talked about three, and make sure your resume is attractive with headlines and all of the things we talked about. How can we take advantage of the fact that, because of COVID, we're home, we're not working, but how can we talk about accomplishments in a very clear manner on our resume? And a standard sort of basic template that should work for you, even if you're looking for a job abroad, right? And their cultural nuances are not that fine. And Virginia shared her top three tips to help her clients to stand out. So that's heck of a lot. And huge thanks to Virginia for being with us today. And
thank you.
no,
Such great questions. You guys, you have a really good audience. They're
yeah,
sharp.
I'm very engaged. So thank you so much, guys, for being with us today. As always, appreciate it. Take care of yourself. Don't always watch the news. Focus on the eyes on the prize. You know exactly what you need. And please be safe. Put your masks on. This thing is not over yet. Do
Oh,
the
no,
right thing.
prepared, but this time next year we are in a totally different place. So.
Exactly. So take care of yourselves, guys. Have a great Friday and weekend. Bye for now.